We love to find reasons external to ourselves why the things we're doing are okay, while ignoring the journey to figuring out whether or not they're right. But no matter what person, animal, or object we justify our actions against, there's still logical faults on our own responsibility for the power that we have. It's a hard reality, but it's a foundational base for clearing your mind of junk logic about your place in the world and what impact you have and could have. It affects your ability to see problems and weaknesses and do something about them. It affects your ability to see clearly in general. I once saw it written on a daily Buddhist practice card on top of the mantle of a fireplace in Boulder, Colorado. Drive all blame inwards. If you want to improve, if you want to seek honesty and truth, if you want an undying flame of strength to burn within yourself, then that is what you must do. Every time we move responsibility and the thought and action that it entails away from ourselves and onto something else, we lose our strength of mind and body. It's a subtle, but also not so subtle signal to yourself that your life doesn't matter, that you aren't capable of affecting change, that your actions don't matter, that your thoughts don't matter, that you aren't important. All this from the simple but powerful idea that you don't need to consider how to respond to the power you attain in life. You are important. Your thoughts do matter, and your actions matter even more. You have an impact on everything around you. The sooner we can accept this and drive this knowledge inwards, the sooner we can really begin the transformation work within ourselves. Work that may not be easy and, in fact, may be very difficult. When we've built our lives up on justifications of how things are other people's fault, then we've allowed mental models of behaviors and thought patterns to cement and compound themselves so deeply into our lives that they become part of our default perspective and identity in the world, and it's challenging to even see their presence. Here are a few unwound logical faults focused on external justifications with their inherent conclusions tied to them. I see the world more clearly than others, so I can discount others' observations when they disagree with mine. Or, I'm more responsible and intelligent than this person, so I'm justified in treating them as an inferior being and not as my equal. Or my carte blanche préférée. Other people are doing much worse things than me, so I can continue to do whatever I want since I'm not as bad as they are. Our lack of responsibility for what happens around us through the blaming of other people and things and events is an often hidden but extremely pervasive and powerful shift in paradigms. There's another insidious form of blaming other people that's actually a form of blaming yourself. That might sound strange from the perspective of driving blame inwards, but not if we recognize inwards as a present moment event and recognize outwards as anything that's not this moment. Speaking concretely, the past version of you is not responsible for the present version of you's thoughts and actions. That is, there's also no possibility to drive blame towards your past self for something that has already happened. Then you're still failing to drive it inwards. Your past self is someone else. You're still blaming someone else instead of taking responsibility. You're still giving up the power and control you have in your life. The best time to make the right decision is right now. Horrible things happen to people in situations where they had no power or control whatsoever. Those are extreme but also all too frequent events. But your present responsibility is to make sure you don't remain the victim of them. Taking control of those events in your present self can manifest in different ways, and it's a journey best spoken about by someone else, but the point is that it's possible, and there are incredible stories told by people who have lived it. That being said, horrible things also happen to people in situations where if they look back, they might see that they did have some power, and it's the present version of ourselves' responsibility to take the actions we can take now to practice integrating that power into our present selves. And thankfully, there are things that happen in our lives that don't rise to a level of horror. And sometimes the reality is that we make things that aren't really very big problems into big problems. And I think a lot of that has to do with losing perspective of our ability to be influential actors who can identify what in life has real value. To look into the future and see what the future version of yourself does to stop these undesirable things from happening has to be a strategy that we feel comfortable calling on. We all have the responsibility to stop bad patterns from manifesting and repeating in life, and I think we can move more powerfully towards that outcome when we're not simply trying to distance ourselves from the vision of someone we don't want to be, and instead we see the ideal future version of our lives and base our actions off that most ideal vision. Our purpose is clearer when we see where we want to go and who we want to be, and thus our motivation and excitement rises to meet the interest we have in our own purpose and the idea of being our future self today. I personally think figuring out how to make the world around you a better place is a great purpose. It's the purpose of this channel, and there are so many ways you can be impactful even as a single individual without any advanced scientific degrees, because the reality is we still haven't solved a lot of basic problems in the world. Problems that stem from our own individual flawed psychologies of implementing bad patterns. All large-scale solutions started off as small-scale solutions, being tested in one-off situations where all the important pieces were available right in front of us. We may have access to different opportunities, and some people may have access to bigger opportunities, but all influential individuals started off without any real influence at all and had to create something from where they were. And even if all you ever accomplish is to gain influence over the direction of your own life, I would say that's a pretty enormous win every single time that it happens. Influence is about seeing and solving problems. That's how you affect changes in the path of least resistance that we are all trying to engineer to lead us towards our desired outcomes. And the best way to see problems that you can solve is to take responsibility for your part in what's happening in your life. When you observe yourself casting the blame outwards towards other people, even when the other person is your past self, then stop and drive that blame inwards and see where your part in it lies. Fix the things you can fix, and you might be surprised how many other things in your life become easier. How much you get for free just by being a bit better organized. Realistically, you'll also notice there are things today that you don't have control or even influence over. And that's good too, because that's a reality of life. When you learn to see those things, then you develop a clearer model of where you can be effective. But here's something else. If you keep spending time being influential in your own life, you might just find that your influence grows to one day include possibilities that weren't previously there. Incremental improvement done with consistency is a scarily strong force, which is another great reason we need to make sure we're improving in the right direction. Something that is unlikely if we aren't laser focused on keeping lies out of the foundation of our lives. Don't let blaming other people for things you're responsible for be the lie that goes undetected in your life. It's very likely you have at least a few problems where you're letting other people take the blame for things you're responsible for. It may not be easy to improve those problems, but then again, sometimes it actually is. Have you ever had that moment where you were so sure something was someone else's fault and you were so frustrated because you felt there was no way you could have done anything to avoid the problem, and then you realized it was actually you that made some mistake or were the problem? I have for sure, and it's happened enough throughout the course of my life that I can guarantee you there are more opportunities to fix things in our lives than we realize, if only we can improve our psychology enough to allow us to see them. Let me know if you have any good examples of that in your life. I think they make great stories to share and that we embolden each other by telling them. Have a responsible day with your power. Recognize where you are powerful so you can figure out what impact you want to have with it. Have a great rest of the day. Peace out.